Welcome back, this is Volt. I hope you enjoy. Last time we managed to deliver 250 amber to the bankrupt trader, earning us 3 starting villages for the rest of the cycle. We can use our food stockpiles to unlock the Fox House as a starting blueprint. We're now in range to embark on the lead seal, but before that let's check out this world event, the Black Amber Syndicate. We don't have to settle on this tile for the world event, it's an instant effect, and we can cut a deal by paying 40 amber before the start of year 6 to gain access to the Syndicate trader, which is an extra trader that we can summon 5 times for free. Otherwise, we can negotiate, causing our traders to sell mystery boxes instead of perks and blueprints. I think we could target reforging the seal before year 6, so cutting the deal for some extra trade options seems like a good idea. So now heading into the seal, we have 3 extra starting villages, 25 starting clay, and 5 Syndicate trader uses. The goal of this settlement is just to reforge the seal. There's no need to fill up the reputation bar other than to earn blueprints. We have 2 caravans with 11 starting villages. The foxes and harpies are probably slightly better species, but I think we'll bring in the beavers because they have extra starting goods, including food, which is important because we'll be turning the difficulty up to Prestige 7 this game, which results in higher food consumption. As the last settlement in the cycle, we can use up all of our embarkation points, so I'll bring in extra villages, extra food, some stone to open some caches or make some bricks, and starting wood. Let's begin. Our Drizzle Forest mystery this game is Sun Festivities. Villages that are eating complex food have an extra chance to produce double yields. At Hostility 1, unhoused villages will move slower. At Hostility 2, we lose extra rainwater for using rain engines. At Hostility 3, food production is slower, and it scales with our hostility level, and villages without complex food and clothing have an extra chance to destroy their yields. The Prestige 7 effect effectively causes our villagers to eat 50% more food. Here is our starting glade. We have 2 clay nodes and 4 mushroom nodes. Notably, we don't have many of these overgrown trees. There's one little deposit up here that we can chop. So if we need to rely heavily on woodcutting, then we'll have to deal with higher than usual hostility. Ideally, that means getting off of wood as a resource to fuel our hearth and using coal, oil, or sea marrow instead. So let's look at our first round of blueprints. None of these seem particularly powerful from our spot, so I think we'll wait until we open some glades before we choose these. So here's our early game plan. We'll start with a woodcutter camp up in this group of overgrown trees for a stable source of wood income, as well as a woodcutter camp behind the hearth to cut into this small glade and find out where the seal is. As always, we'll start with the rain collector. We only have enough parts to build 1 gathering camp, so we'll go with the stonecutter camp rather than the herbalist camp, because the clay nodes are a lot better than the mushrooms, and they're also gathered more quickly. Our small glade has 4 more clay nodes and 2 salt veins, as well as a drizzle water geyser, and of course the guidance stone. It seems to be pointing to this very far away dangerous glade, which is unfortunate, so the quickest way to get there is through this dangerous glade. It is pretty useful to open this glade to get access to some more overgrown trees, but it will be important to set up a second hearth and warehouse because it's a long way away from our starting hub. So our next priority then is to make the building materials we need for the hearth. We can get away with making them in the crude workstation, but not for the warehouse because we don't have any source of fabric. So we'll have to rely on what's in the next glade or potentially call a trader in order to set this up. We also have our cornerstone to select. These don't really jump off the page at me. We could potentially use copper into copper bars with one of our blueprints because we get a lot of copper from the clay nodes. We don't have a source of grain at the moment, And while we do have some salt veins that we could mine, it's not a particularly great use of labour time. I think declining for 10 amber and calling a trader early to get some building materials is probably the best use of this cornerstone. You would think it would be a good time to call the Syndicate trader to use our amber with them, but they don't bring building materials, unfortunately, so we'll have to rely on the old reliable trading post. I think we should now decide on some blueprints. I think the stamping mill and the smelter are the two best options here. The training gear from the smelter would be interesting. We could use it to open the caches or solve some events. But I think with the 6 clay nodes we've now discovered, having a 2-star brick recipe is really good. Even if we don't use that many bricks over the course of the game, we could still in the future make packs of building materials to sell to the trader. This one's also interesting. The coal would make us rely less on wood in the hearth, which is a positive, but now that we're opening that dangerous glade, we know we're going to have some more overgrown trees, so I'm not too worried about that. So I think the carpenter is a slightly better option than the kiln, just for the better plank recipe. We also have copper bars to make tools. There's a good enough reason to hold this pick until we open the glade though, just in case this herbalist camp ends up being useful. We have our first batch of orders. I think start your engines is clearly better here. We get villagers as a reward, and even the other rewards are better. It's also cheaper because it doesn't cost bricks. Another easy pick, called Arms, grants us villagers, and we could potentially buy the Purging Fire from a trader, which makes it very easy to do. We should be able to do Booming Economy fairly quickly by calling traders, and once again grants us villagers and amber, which is great. So once we open this dangerous glade, call a trader to see if we can address these 2 orders, as well as solve the glade event and get some building materials. I think we'll hold off on installing the rain engines though, until we've picked all our blueprints, so that we can use our pipes appropriately. There's a lot of good stuff in this glade. The notable resources are the 2 large clay nodes, and the large sea marrow node, as well as the stormwater geyser. We have a cannery ruin, which can produce paste, wine, and biscuits. So we can rebuild it, or we can salvage it for some nice complex food. There's also a medium abandoned cache that we can open for bars, tablets, and wildfire essence, or send to the Citadel. And finally, there's the small destroyed caravan. If we don't resolve it, traders won't visit the area, and trade routes won't be available. We can loot it at the cost of hostility for some goodies, or send it to the Citadel for some rep. I also called Zorg right before we opened the glade. He didn't bring any planks, which would have been the best, or Purging Fire to complete the order, but there's still some useful building materials here that we can use. So we already know we want a new hub out here to harvest these overgrown trees and also to chop through to the seal. So we need to get this warehouse set up ASAP. Having the warehouse down will also help us loot the abandoned cache faster, and either salvage or rebuild the cannery. We'll also need room to actually place a hearth. We can either delete the algae bond to squeeze it into this corner. We can salvage the cannery to remove it from the map and place it here. The cannery could be useful. We don't really use the 3-star paste, but the wine we could use to put into packs of luxury goods, for which we have the recipe waiting in our blueprints. Even if we don't end up rebuilding the cannery, I still think the carpenter is the best pick now. The planks and tools are great, and we have no need for the herbalist camp or the herb garden. These are some very bad options. I don't see a good use for any of these, and we definitely can't justify using this amber to reroll with our trade order. I think we'll just have to accept taking one of these bad blueprints so that we can see our next 2 when we complete the next orders. So I think with no container recipe, rebuilding the cannery just for the wine is a bit fanciful. Salvaging it for a bit of extra complex food is both helpful and cheap, and in doing so we clear room for the hearth. As for this abandoned cache, I think we're going to immediately call another trader after Zorg leaves to hopefully find some planks or Purging Fire or pipes, and breaking this open to get the tablets out to trade would be quite useful. The extra wildfire essence is also helpful so that we can afford to upgrade our geyser pump once we have the planks for it. And then lastly, we need to deal with this caravan. I think the best time to deal with it is right now, while we have low hostility and we're still a long way away from the storm. It also doesn't require any goods to loot it, so we don't need to wait until the warehouse comes up. I want to spend 12 amber with Zorg here, so that when the next trader rolls around, we can use one of our ancient tablets from the cache to complete the 20 value order. So we're going to buy a bunch of fabric, which is in short supply, to build the warehouse, the carpenter, and maybe some lizard houses, as well as 1 brick to complete the warehouse and also get the stamping mill up. The rest we can produce, and the rest we can spend on wine that we can make into packs of luxury goods in the carpenter. Now that we have our ancient tablets, we've called Zahilda. She doesn't have planks, unfortunately, so I think we're going to have to rely on making some in the crude workstation and then the carpenter. So that probably means building the second hearth before we actually set our stamping mill up. So we'll grab 8 more bricks for that. Also grab enough pipes to set up the geyser pump and 2 rain engines to complete the order. And we can also form a little plan here with this mushroom perk. Grab 8 amber from the trader. And in doing so, we've completed this order, getting us 10 more amber. And we can afford this +1 to mushroom production perk. And now we can pick up the smithy, specifically to unlock this pack of trade goods recipe, because we can now produce a massive amount of mushrooms and then process it into flour in the stamping mill, to then process it further into the packs of trade goods here very efficiently. None of these overly excite me, so we'll wait to open the next glade before we pick this. So our list of priorities now is to produce 8 planks in the crude workstation, followed by building the carpenter with those 8 planks. Then once we've made 9 planks in the carpenter, we can afford to make the geyser pump, which will let us connect pipes to the carpenter and produce faster planks. And then eventually we'll be able to afford the hearth, the smithy, and the stamping mill. We've been having some resolve problems thanks to the Dangerous Glade event, so I've preemptively added a rain engine to this makeshift post and started making some packs of provisions with a lizard and a harpy, just to improve their resolve with rainwater and prevent them from leaving. This event will be complete before the storm rolls in, and we should also have time to put up some houses and upgrade the hearth. We don't have the stormwater yet to power up this carpenter, but we can connect the pipes already, which completes our order to install 2 rain engines. Importantly, that gives us the extra parts that we need to build another gathering camp on the mushrooms. With the packs of provisions and some of the excess copper from our clay nodes, we're able to send off our first trade route for the game right before the storm hits. It's now the storm, and we're afflicted by the plague of mosquitoes, which reduces our global production speed by 50%. There's not really much we can do to mitigate that, other than make sure that we spend a lot of time building through this season. We have this very nice trade route to run this season, with the copper bars that we got from the abandoned cache. Combined with this route that we ran last season, we'll be able to get Velith Ranova up to standing level 1 before the start of year 2. First group of newcomers is here. These will tip us over the edge to hostility 1, but I think our resolve is pretty stable at the moment. I think fabric is slightly more scarce than the pipes and copper bars. Alright, we've reached the seal. And we can make packs of goods, or open or send caches, or make rain engines. At this stage, rain engines looks the easiest, given we have recipes for copper bars and pipes, as well as an easy source of copper from the large clay nodes. Of note in the rest of the glade are the large meat nodes, the large scale pond, as well as fertile soil, and the leaking cauldron Dangerous Glade event. If we don't resolve it, it will give us -8 to global resolve, very painful, and we can burn it down for fuel, which is quite cheap, as well as 90% reduced food production speed. to get copper bars, barrels, and +2 to mushroom production, giving us a total of +3, or we can fix it at great expense to get some fields of fertile soil. So I think burning it down is the clear best option here, given we have the mushroom nodes ready to harvest. And we're currently not producing any food, so this working effect is actually meaningless. There's no hostility penalty, so there's no reason not to start work on this right away. And we can now make some blueprint decisions. The Trapper's Camp is now the easy pick with the large meat nodes. These are some great options. The large meat nodes give leather, so that makes the leather worker quite useful, especially for the boots. But the bakery and the smokehouse are both complex food buildings, which we currently lack. Jerky keeps the lizards and harpies happy, and we have the meat input, whereas biscuits and pies keep the beavers and lizards happy, and we already have the flour recipe as an input. I think despite having more beavers, the jerky recipe is just a bit more efficient, and we don't actually care that much about our beaver resolve this game. Having a consistent source of jerky makes it easier to prevent the lizards and harpies from leaving, which is the biggest risk. And it also prevents us being bottlenecked by our flour production speed, since we're going to use flour in packs of trade goods as well. So after all that, the game plan hasn't actually changed too much. We're still bottlenecked by wood to make planks into our buildings. And once all of our buildings are built, we can start installing rain engines in all of them and work towards our seal task.